Hi, this is Anita Stewart. I'm reporting for a number of different outlets, Challenging the Rhetoric, Wise Women Media, Deep Green Resistance, and many more. It was important to get this information out about the Sabal Trail Pipeline and how this has become a reality on the ground for many people that are losing their property through eminent domain. And this is going to not only endanger people's personal property, but the lands and the waters and indigenous folks' land as well, sacred burial sites, and flora and fauna everywhere from the 515-mile pipeline, which will go from Alabama through southwest Georgia, and it will intersect the state of Florida all the way to Marin County. So today I have on the line with me Jeb Bell, who's one of those families that's been directly affected by the pipeline. He and his family own property in Mitchell County, Georgia. The property's been owned by their family since 1985. So, Jeb Bell, thank you for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about how you found out that your land was going to be taken through eminent domain for this pipeline project.
Well, thank you, Ms. Anita, for doing this. First, let me say that. As far as when I found out, the whole process began for us in about 2014. Sabal Trail sent us a letter saying they were wanting to come through this area, through southwest Georgia, for the pipeline. I immediately sent them a letter, told them I did not want them on my land to stay off of. We had endangered species such as the gopher tortoise on our land, and we did not want them there. During that time, if I remember correctly, they come out and they said they had like a Route A and a Route B. Well, within a week or 2 weeks of getting the first letter, we kind of got like a postcard a week to 2 weeks later saying that, our route had been chosen. It's kind of like a congratulatory thing, so to speak. That's what it seemed like to me. And it seemed very suspicious that they could choose all this inside of a week to 2 weeks. Then,
wow.
Later on, my father observed them on our land is in Lester, Georgia, Lester. It's a little small unincorporated community, not even really a town. It's at the intersection of Highway 93 and 112. It's just south of Albany, Georgia, about 15 minutes or so. He was going to Albany one morning and one day and observed them out on the land after we had told them not to be there. Later on, to kind of get to the crux of the matter, they sued us in court in Lee County in front of a man named Judge Rucker, Rucker Smith. Because my brother and I both were living in Lee County at the time, so that's why the court case is in Lee County rather than Mitchell County, which is where our land is. Now,
right.
They sued us, and we countersued them for trespassing. To get more to the crux of the matter again, they were granted eminent domain, which I completely disagree with, because I don't believe that a for-profit company should be granted eminent domain unless there were just some unbelievable circumstances in some way, fashion, or another. I think eminent domain should be used for government and government only. This is a pipeline. It's a multi-billion-dollar company that's doing this for profit. And I don't think the state of Georgia is getting any kind of benefit out of it whatsoever, in my opinion. Now, they used a law that was on the books beginning back like in 1929, so it was almost 100 years old. And
wow.
From what I understand, this law has been on and off the books for decades. There have been times they have taken the law off of the books. But it just so happened to be on the books this time, and they used it. And they used it in a sense to, get this eminent domain. And our contention was, this is what we had in front of Rucker Smith. Whether or not they got eminent domain at that time, whether it was not germane to the proceedings in my mind, because when they trespassed on the land, they could not possibly have known at that time whether or not they had eminent domain. Rucker Smith gave them after the fact. After the fact, he granted it to them. And, you know, we made an offer to settle everything, and that day they rejected it. They come back months and months later, after very little or any or no kind of connection, you want to say, and offer us a measly $1,000. But in that $1,000, it was language in it to suggest that we couldn't bring any other kind of charges against them in the future. So, and we did not, and this is a very big deal, I believe, it was not a good faith offer. It was
right.
Not, it was not a good faith offer. So ultimately, we rejected that. Okay.
The SableTrailTransmission.com website states that when they're, compensating people through eminent domain, it's almost like they're not even using the eminent domain laws correctly, because it's more like seizure of the land rather than doing it through legal means. But the fact that they can seize the land and then give you something that is just ludicrous in regards to like $1,000 versus the worth of your land, which their website directly counteracts that they do anything like that. So the people that are going through the eminent domain, you and all the other families, I think it was 25 in Florida, perhaps close to 60 all along the whole length of the pipeline. These are the households that have been affected through eminent domain. So it's almost like I would like to hear the other stories, too, to see exactly what happened with them. I think it's marvelous that you've been able to step out and talk about it.
Let me make sure we all on the same page about one quick thing, just so, the $1,000 was to settle the trespassing. The trespass.
Right.
They have offered us, as far as I know, absolutely nothing in terms of the land. Now, I'll also go to this too. I think this is very important to show you one other reason why my argument has been it was not a good faith. They have not been in good faith since the beginning of this. There are two court cases. One of these is in Stewart County, Georgia, Stewart, Stewart County, Georgia. This was a small. This was a man, Mr. Singer, if I'm not mistaken, that was his name. He was in a nursing home, and Sabal Trail took this man to court. The man was in a nursing home. He could not defend himself. They took him to court, and there was some kind of mix-up, which seems very strange to me, about the court dates in which the Singer family was aware of when it was going to court. Well, when it came to the court date, nobody from the Singer family showed up because they evidently got the wrong information somehow, way or another. I'm not exactly sure about the court date. But Sabal Trail people showed up, and they gave her some grand performance in front of the judge and whatever audience was there, because there was no opposition from the Singers. So therefore, they got a summary judgment which was given by James Sizemore, who specifically said that court case could not be applied to any other court cases. But what Sabal Trail did, they sent that ruling, that summary judgment ruling, out to other people along the pipeline corridor they were going through. In my estimation of my peace of mind or my opinion, as an intimidation tactic.
Right.
to show that they've already got eminent domain established, and you better not fight against us, or we'll take you to court and we'll win.
And they're using that against you in regards to turning this around and saying that you have to come up with the $47,000 in court costs because you fought it.
That's
right.
Yes, and pretty much that's about right. Then they said since we rejected the $1,000, they have the right to it. They use some kind of obscure law or whatever the case may be. And Rucker Smith, again, Judge Rucker Smith, is all happening in his court case. It's all happening. It's all in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
He suggested that we go to mediation, and we went to mediation a few days prior to him awarding him that money several months ago. On the way up there, my father yet again saw them trespassing on the land, confronted the people about it. They said they had not. They said, have y'all contacted my lawyer and all this, my son's lawyer? No, we hadn't, and gave some other kind of. They said, well, we're not supposed to contact the lawyer. Well, that's not what's in court. That's not my opinion. In my mind, that's not what's in court transcripts in either Lee County or, and I know in federal court in Columbus in front of Judge Land. So, they were supposed to contact our lawyer for going on there. Well, yet again, when my father was coming up to help me in mediation, which we had in Americus, Georgia, he observed them on the land yet again and confronted them about it. And it was just a bunch of BS wording that they tried with that. Well, in mediation, we went ahead and offered them $10,000, which was double what I paid my lawyer. Double
right.
What my brother and I paid our lawyer to handle our case. Just to be done with it, I guess. In other words, and they wouldn't take it. They wanted the ruling. They wanted the ruling, and some poor person in Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Florida, wherever. Somebody, it might be a year from now or 5 years from now, will have this. I truly believe this. They will have that court case where they got their lawyer fees from my brother and I. They will have that thrown against them if they dare stand up against this pipeline. And now, as I understand, the one that's doing the Dakota Access Pipeline is acquiring Spectre Energies, or at the very least they are combining the
right.
MBAR, whatever it's called. So I'm sure MBAR will probably use this court case against somebody else too somewhere. Heck, it might be in New Mexico, who knows? But they are, we offered them $10,000, twice what I paid my lawyer. They wouldn't have it. They wanted the court case, and Rucker Smith gave them, ruled in their favor. All he had to do, from what my attorney said, was he could say $1,000 was not in good faith, and the court case had been thrown out then and there and would have been done. But this is what a Superior Court judge said to regular, ordinary, average day citizens. It was not his job to find justice. All he was doing was to find, he had to go by the law set down by the legislature. And I remember hearing that man say that, and I thought to myself, I said, well, if a judge is not supposed to find justice, and quite frankly, who the hell is supposed to find justice? Are we going back to lynch mobs and that kind of mentality in this country? A sitting Superior Court judge would have the gall in open court say, I'm not supposed to find justice. If he gave them, like I said, we had already said we would give them $10,000. We didn't want to give them anything, nothing at all. But we'd already said gave him $10,000. He could have said it wasn't in good faith. $1,000 was not in good faith, and it had been over and done with right then there, and we walked out in 10 minutes. Or he could have gave them the he gave him $1,000, he gave him $2,000, or anything from nothing to what they were asking for. But he gave them the full amount. So again, another man who is elected by the representatives and the state, taxpayers and stuff like that in Lee County, Sumter County, whatever district he's all in, Stewart County is one of the districts I know. He made two average ordinary citizens pay a multi-billion-dollar company that's for profit nearly $50,000 in legal fees.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Tell me how maybe some of the other families have gotten together with you. Are you in direct communication with other families that are affected along the route that might be close to where you are?
Yes, ma'am. Well, in a few different regards, there's been some, I guess maybe say like extended family, things of that nature. People we've known for years and years and years is gone through their land. Our lawyer also represents another lady in Cochran County that's going through her land. And I think actually two or three different people in Cochran County. He is there. And we've all had talks before over the phone and face-to-face. Like, for instance, when we were in federal court in Columbus, he was there representing all of us, so we all kind of sat down face-to-face and talked. It's just really sickening that I was always under the impression that eminent domain could only be granted to some kind of government entity, like, federal or state or whatever the case might be, for the greater good of the country in terms of a bridge, in terms of a highway, a road, something like that. I could understand that. I can appreciate those things. But something that is, and I fully well believe, in my personal opinion, that the gas that will be going down from Alabama through southwest Georgia, with the absolute possibility of contaminating not only the Chattahoochee but the Flint River as well, if it explodes or anything like that. I mean, you talk about 1.3 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day, 365 days a year, and get a calculator out, and that comes up to be 474.5. So nearly 500 billion cubic feet of natural gas, which you might as well go and round up and say 500 billion cubic feet of natural gas every year.
And it's important. It's important to let people know that this isn't just going through people's property and close to where people live, but this is going into wooded areas and underneath waterways, underneath rivers and ponds and lakes and streams, etc. So it's not a question of if the pipes will rupture. This is methane gas for the most part. It's a question of when the pipelines will rupture, because none of them are ever fail-safe.
No, if man can build it, it can be destroyed. If man can build it, it can tear up, it can decay over time. And something else that like on our land where the pipeline is going at, they are stacking it on top of an already existing pipeline. They're crossing it. So in that pipeline there, I think is real old. I don't remember, about 60, I guess, thereabouts. So it's at the end of its line, but it's only like 12 inches diameter, and it's like 8 feet under the ground or something. This is going to be 36 inches in diameter, 3 feet below the ground. And what I also understand is that in fields like row crops, peanuts, corn, things of that nature, they're only going to bury it 4 feet under the ground. So, if somebody's not paying, if you figure erosion and look at this part of the country, we do have hurricanes come through here quite a bit, tropical storms, something that comes in and drops 15, 20 inches of rain. I remember in 1994, it rained like 20 inches in 24 hours. So if something like that comes through and it's only 4 feet under the ground, 3 to 4 feet under the ground, the erosion problem, who's going to come fix that? Also, all this big, heavy equipment is a part of this country in terms of tractors and such and excavators. What's going to happen when one of these things hits this thing one time? I believe that the blast radius is nearly 1,000 yards.
Right.
So, in anything within 1,000 yards of that, you could potentially say it would be just utterly evaporated. It would be like just striking a match and it just be gone time you strike it.
And if it's close to dwellings, that's in no way safe that's the human impact of it. But what about, where the pipeline crosses through a wooded area and that wooded area hasn't had rain in some time, and then there's some kind of compromise with the pipe and it explodes and the forest would be gone, literally, and it would never be able to be put out,
It would rage for, there's no telling how long. I mean, you'd have to look at several different factors in that, of course, but it would go and go and go for quite a while. And, there's no telling how much of ecological damage, environmental damage, property damage, anything of the like that could happen. And I understand I'm very much a realist in this one sense. I understand we got to have gases, things of that nature and all that, but I think there's a way to do things and there's a way not to do things. And if this company would have come, I guess you could say the phrase hat in hand, kind of bend knees and had some explanations with the questions we were asking, we could, so maybe this would be a different situation. But this has obviously not been a different situation. It has been nothing more than a bunch of lawyer talk, a bunch of like just using the 1929 law, for instance. And as I understand it, then they still have to go to federal court for that. And when they enter state court, they try to use state law. When they're in federal court, they use federal law. So they're bouncing back and forth and all that kind of thing. And something else that has been just heartbreaking in some sense is just the simple fact that nobody seems to really, really care about this as much as people should. There's been good reporting on it. I have to say that. And something else that is a little discouraging is the fact that the state legislature in Georgia voted by, like 80%. I think it's like 128 to 30, 130 to 30, something along those lines. Take a vote to not to give them an easement to go under the Chattahoochee River and the Flint River and with the Coochie Rivers in Georgia. They did not give them. They voted. It was in this one particular bill. When they found that out, they took the easement, the Sabal Trail Pipeline easement, out of it and sent it back. And with the easements without Sabal Trail, it passed unanimously, but it was rejected unanimously to not give them an easement. Well, I learned just a few days ago, a week or so ago, that FERC granted them this right. I remember growing up, and the state would not defend. The state of Georgia, the Attorney General would not defend it.
Wow. So this is granting the easement to go under those rivers? Is that what this?
As I understand it right now, FERC has approved them to go under the rivers, and the State Attorney General of Georgia would not fight it, even though the state legislators had voted, 130 to 28 or whatever it was, to not allow them the easements.
Do you know where your state legislators sit in regards to support of this project? And do you know anything about perhaps campaign contributions that they've taken from this company or any of the allied companies or parent companies?
No, nothing specifically. I would like to single out one particular person who I sent an email before that vote to about 15 to 20 let's see. I'm sorry, I just got distracted. I sent an email to about 20 different South Georgia legislatures right before that vote, that 130 to 30 vote, and in any event, one particular person called, and I believe that you give credit where credit's due, whether you don't like it, you do like it. And that was Mr. Clay Purple, who's out of Tifton, Georgia. He called me. He gave me his personal number after I got the email because he thought he could see that I was concerned, and so he called, and we talked on the phone. He was very, very supportive as a Republican man, and also, and I cannot forget to mention this, and probably who's been even more helpful is a lady named Debbie Buckner, who's a Democrat. She's right out of just north of Columbus, Georgia. She is. I'm glad I got recalled her name. She's been extremely helpful, and I think that says a little bit in this day and time. I had a Republican man and a Democrat woman both helping, both right. Mr. Clay, he voted against it, give them the easements. And I know Ms. Buckner did, and I think it's a very, very constructive thing to look at. If you look at the fact that there was such a wide gap, and that Democrats and Republicans, male, female, black, white, whatever you want to say it, that voted not to give them easements. You know, there was this thing that got written in the 1700s called the Constitution. There's things that's called states' rights. And I believe if the state says, no, we don't want this, it's not going to benefit us, we don't want it, that should be the end of it.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be the United States of America. So therefore, and I looked on a map once, and last time I looked, Florida and Alabama merged. They connected. And I heard a man say this one time at a meeting in Dougherty County. I don't remember the man's name, but he was in opposition to the pipeline. He said, Alabama's got it, Florida wants it, why can't y'all get together and leave Georgia out of it? Which I thought was pretty interesting. And it's true, but in my opinion, what reason they came down through us here is the path of least resistance. And
right.
They could sway things their way however they wanted to.
Now, where does your family go from here? What's next on the agenda? I know that you have the GoFundMe page set up to help with the funds regarding the court costs that they sued you back for, which is a little over $47,000. But what happens after that, or what are your plans now?
Well, right now we're still trying to figure out how to go about those funds, and we do have a GoFundMe page. It's Bell Brothers versus Sabal Lawyer Fees. It's up on the GoFundMe page. I've gotten about $1,600 in it now. There's been a lot of very nice people that I don't know from Adam's House Cat, and I will probably never meet my whole entire life. I'll live another 60 years. I'll probably never meet them. But they've given money, $5, $10. Some people give 100, 200, things of that nature. And it's been very touching in that aspect. Now, as far as where we go from here, we're trying to figure out if we can get the money up, not get the money up, and taking out a loan or whatever the case may be. We're also in the process of maybe thinking about appealing it, but in that case, we'd have to put up a bond and all that kind of
right.
stuff. So there's a whole lot of stuff to go into it. Now, and something that really makes me also is we've got to go back to federal court and have a condemnation hearing. I don't know if it's being in front of one judge or a three judge panel or a 12-member jury. And I think it's just be a judge. I think it's just be a judge. In any event, we've got to go back and have condemnation hearings this coming March. So 6 months from now, September now. So we got 6 months. We got to have condemnation hearing, and they've already been out on my land. They've taken out I don't know how many trees, The trees were not at full maturity yet, and we'd have no idea of how much money we're out of pocket.
Right.
And we're also never going to be able to use land for its intended use. Nobody wants to build a house on something that's with that much pressure. And nobody in their right mind, let me put it that way, nobody in their right mind would want to build something anywhere near anything like that. So, our land is and another thing, it is going to be worth, if we have to sell it for whatever God knows reason, it would be worth a fraction of what it would be worth of the pipeline now. So
everything, anybody that's involved in something like this, automatically the rates on your property or the value of your property is diminished considerably.
Greatly.
So there's no way that anybody, even Sabal Trail, could come back and make that even or make that right, because they're not going to. And
another thing that is just unbelievable, and I don't know who this is state, this is federal, whatever the case may be, but the land I got now, they're taking about 100 feet worth of trees, east to west, and several hundred yards long, maybe 600 yards long. They've got berms piled up 8, 9, 10 feet tall. They've taken out how many, God only knows how many hundreds of trees. And even after all this is said and done with, from what we are under an impression of, we cannot traverse the land. We can't go across it. We can't. So therefore, any land that is on the western side of this pipeline, we can't use that either. But, and this is what I'm getting to, is we still have to pay taxes on land that it cannot be used. So they've taken out, they said 5 acres, but I don't believe it. Then you got to look at land that's going to be on the western side of the pipeline. That is pretty much not usable either now, because we cannot traverse the land. And again, if you think about erosion and problems of that nature and things that could happen with that pipeline, I don't want to go across it. I don't want people who might be logging my trees for me to go across it.
Right.
And my understanding is they're not even be allowed to. So therefore, you're going to have land that you own, you have the deed to, but there's four private companies going to make billions of dollars every year, and I'm paying taxes for them to use my land, and they're going to offer me a one-time fee of something or another. It's just pathetic, and it needs to be addressed in some shape, form, or fashion. On not necessarily, on all levels, local, state, and federal. If some company is going to be doing this, if they're getting the profit, they're getting the line use of your land, they should at the very least have to pay you, whatever the land's worth for the duration that they're going to be using it, and they got to pay the taxes. I mean, that's just an insult to common sense. It is just
exactly.
It's just a huge insult to common sense and common decency. But these are the people, and I'll say this too. This is just as I found during this whole court case things. I learned a little bit about the law, and I've heard some good examples of things. One of the things that stood out to me was we were in Judge Land's court in Columbus, in federal court, and Matt Calvert, who's the lawyer for Sabal Trail out of Atlanta, was started to say something about the pipeline, people's land, and Judge Land looked at him and said, "Well, Mr. Calvert, that's all well and fine, sir, but this pipeline isn't going through your land." And I would really like to know, like, there's been a man, Mr. Gonzalez, who's been I think he's like a project superintendent or something like that with Sabal Trail.
Right.
He was at that Garrett County Commission meeting or something I spoke about just a few minutes ago. I'd like to see his house. Where's his house? I'm sure it's not within 1,000 yards, maybe 50 miles of the pipeline. All these people who make tremendous amounts of money get to take advantage of the little guy and make the little guy pay their legal fees.
That to me just blows my mind. That's just like to me, it's like, let's do the damage, but it's almost to the point now where the corporations are the government now. There's no separation between our government, who is allowing this to happen, and indeed some of the members are making money off of it, and the corporations that are actually writing the legislation and allowing themselves to commit these atrocities. So
I've often said that lobbying and lobbyists, all that is pretty much a legalized form of bribery.
Right. And that's how I see it too.
And I stand beside that. And you got these campaign contributions. Well, there's an old saying: you take care of the people who take care of you. And,
right.
And just let your mind kind of wander on that. You take care of the people who take care of you. So if XYZ company gives $1 million, quote unquote, campaign contributions to candidate XYZ, well, candidate XYZ, he or she, Democrat or Republican, is going to be expected to come through sooner or later.
Right. Well, I want to thank you for your heartfelt talk, and I don't know what to say. I saw the picture in Newsweek of you looking over the land, and it looked like you were going to cry, and I thought, this is just, it's almost worse than genocide to know that you're connected to the land, that this land belongs to you, and yet it's just legally being stolen from you. It's being seized, not even stolen. And I don't know where we go from here, but all I know is, we're starting to get a groundswell of people that are interested in fighting Sabal Trail, but we don't have a lot of time because they're expected to be completed with the project in May of 2017. So we've got maybe 6 months max that we can work on this. So I want to ask you, are you against the possibility of having encampments along the lines of Sabal Trail's projected route at this time? Do you think that what they're doing in North Dakota is something that we should be doing here? Are you thinking that right now?
Well, I don't really know what else you could possibly do in terms of bringing attention to it. I think what is happening out there with the Dakotas, from what I can understand, is going through their reservation, and the Native American Indians have certainly suffered probably more than any group in this country ever.
Right.
There's just name another group who, they were on our land before we got here. If you want to say it like that. Going through there to endanger them even more, and I saw some kind of statistics about people out there just, substandard living. They're living on a few dollars a day, and they want to go through their reservation, which is just, I thought you couldn't do anything like that on the reservation. That was my understanding from back in school, that, that was an Indian reservation, and that was it. That was their own. That was like a sovereign nation. You could not do anything on there, but now some for-profit companies coming through there. So in terms of what you're talking about, man, I'm getting a bit on the rant. I guess that's about the only other option that you've got to do is some kind of protest where you get the news outlets to do, and God bless the people out there at the Dakota Access Pipeline that are standing up for what they believe in. And I've always been raised that way. You stand up for what you believe in. You say it with conviction. Stand up straight, hold your head high, and fight for what you believe in, and fight for what you think is right. And I think it's right I think it'll be completely legitimate and legalized for the state of Georgia to fight it based on states' rights, and that there's no customers in the state of Georgia. As I understand, there are no customers right now in the state of Georgia for this pipeline. So, again, it's just practical, logistical standpoint, all practicality. It's when it goes through, it's going to be for profit, and it's coming down to Florida, and I think for sure for certain it'll be sold for export. That's been the big argument from the very beginning. Some people are saying, well, we use a lot of natural gas here in Florida, but there's other documents, their own documents even, that discuss the processing of this, the gas that's actually going to be transported into LNG and used for transport or exports elsewhere. So they're kind of calling attention to this because they're not consistent about the purpose of all of this within their own documentation. So that's what a lot of people are seeing right now and questioning. And we may never get the real story until we're seeing the ships actually picking it up. But I think the biggest thing that's been frightening is the possibility of transporting this gas on commuter trains in Florida, which has just been crazy. I heard that one.
Yeah, which we know, I mean, what could possibly go wrong with that, you know?
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
So,
nothing
but
whatsoever.
anyway, right. But I want to thank you, Jeb. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. I want to thank you for this interview. I wish you the best of luck. Anything you need from us that are organizing out here, just to give us the word. I will be putting up a blog post and using this audio file in other places so we can get the word out. I'll include the GoFundMe page so people can link up with that. And the article that was out of Fusion and Newsweek, it was republished by Newsweek just this past week. And so people can have a full story. And wishing you the best of luck, and thank you so much for this interview.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye.